Alright, today is July 14, 2018. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the semiconductor stock that I'm watching for the coming week. Now, beware that a lot of these things are due for earnings, so in the next week or two. So, got to be careful about that, okay? So, let's start off with Micron. Here's a daily chart on Micron. I'm looking at this trend line here. See how it came down and sort of bounced off the trend line here, and also bounces off this pivot high. And right now it's approaching this gap here. So what I'm looking at, if I take a look at the 30-minute chart here, and essentially looking for some short-term swing trade. There's a couple possibilities. One is that for this thing to come up, but fill the gap, completely fill the gap, move up and then come back and retest and then moves. Then probably will look for some sort of a long opportunity here to at least get it back up, play it back up here at this pivot low here, or this area here for potential resistance, okay, before it might even come up and hit these pivot high. Now the other possibility is, let me put this back on, is that it could come up and come back down and essentially work itself back down to retest this particular support here, this pivot, or even possibly get back to this level near 50. So that's one of the possibility on the downside. And the next one is Cypress. Looking at Cypress here, let's get some trend line here. You can see also it came down and pretty much almost got down to this trend line and bounced. And here's one of the potential resistance area here on the upside. All right, but there's also a little gap here. So if we take a look at the 30-minute, right, let's go in and check up on these gap here. Right, and here's some of the potential upside downside. So if Cypress could get up here, then probably maybe see it come up to that resistance and bump up to get up to fill that gap. Then maybe we could look at this area here for a potential long, or it might not even get up to this area. Essentially just it could come up here and bounce back. So essentially playing for a gap fill. And if we let me put these back here, right? And here's the recent low. So for example, if this is unable to get to and then come back down, if it break this low here, all right, then we basically are looking for this thing to come down. All right, so so that's for Cypress. Next, look at AMD. AMD, let's put up this resistance turn support here. You can see that AMD went up and sort of came down and tried to find this, test this for support and move back up. Okay, so essentially right now the level to watch is this level on the downside, and on the upside essentially this high here. So we take a look at the 30-minute, and let's put up some of these lines here. Okay, so you can see if AMD move back up above this pivot high here, then we could probably see it retest up at this level. Right, and if it come down and it's a break, and probably would come down and see if it would test this pivot for support again. And if we get a bounce, then probably we'll get this as resistance and then come back down here to this level. Here we take a look at Intel. Looking at Intel, here's the trend line. It came down and bounced off of it, and it came back up, filled this gap here. So right now, looking to see would it be able to make up here and to these pivot high, or would it come down and test this, then bounce again, or it will break this and break down to the next level down here. So if we take a look at the 30-minute here to look at some of the potential trade location. Okay, so if I put in some of these pivot high and low, okay, so if this thing come up and bounce back and pull back, get a little back test, then probably we'll take a long here to play up here to this particular pivot right? Or even, so you might see a little bit of a resistance. So maybe it could come up here and come down like this. So just kind of keep an eye on those level on the upside for potential resistance, and then come down for a support test here, and then look for a long entry. Okay, so if we set this thing up on the downside, say come down and came back up, then that would be another area to might take a long and play it back up to this pivot, this upper band here. But if it come down break, then we're basically looking for this thing to come up and retest the thing and go back down. Right, so essentially test down here, maybe find support, bounce, and then come back down. Then we'll probably be looking at somewhere around this below 49 area for Intel. Now let's take a look at a LED producer, CREE. And CREE here again, got this long-term trend line here. Came down, kind of sort of bounced off of that, and right now it might be heading up, at least looking for a possibility of filling up this gap, and maybe get up to this pivot high here. So if we take a look at the 30-minute chart here, and let's put up some level. Okay, some of these pivot level here. All right. Okay. And here's the gap fill that we're looking at, and also there's a little bit of a gap as well up here. So one possibility is for this thing to come up, break this resistance here, back test, and then go fill the gap. Then once it get the gap fill, it could either continue to go up, or it could come back and do a little back test before it move up. Then the other possibility is, you see also there's a little gap down here, and there's pivot there, and the low here is to come down, back test this support here that it broke, and then come down here and try to find support down here to see would it get a bounce back up. And if it doesn't get a bounce and it start coming back down, then likely we're going to see this down here 41. Okay, let's take a look at MXIM. MXIM is another semiconductor producer here, manufacturer. So again, they're also sort of coming up on this trend line, and got a bounce here, and right now it's appeared that it might try to break this sort of like a wedge here, or this resistant trend line here. And if we break this, then we're essentially looking for this pivot, these pivot high as potential resistance. And if we take a look at the 30-minute chart here, just kind of put up a couple of these levels here. Here's one level, and here's a pivot. So essentially at this area here. So if this thing move up, then we're probably looking for the possibility of at least back test and come up to this 62 area. But if it come up and it pull back down, then we're essentially looking for these area to see would it be able to provide some support and bounce back up. And if it can't, then we're essentially looking for it to come back down, and this will this area here will essentially turn into resistance. And looking at ADI, analog devices, here also got a trend line. It seems to be bouncing off right now. It's kind of pulled back a little bit, and maybe it's trying to make a move higher. Or the other possibility is that it could be forming a lower high and a lower low, come back down and test this trend line once again. So if we take a look at this 30-minute chart here, and take a look at some of the pivot level here. We essentially got a little bit of a resistance up here and some support down here. So if ADI can move up and move to these resistance and get a back test, then we'll probably be looking at the possibility of this thing moving back above 100, and maybe possibly make it to the 101, 102 area. But if it come down and unable to penetrate these resistance and start coming back down, and maybe it will try to find support down here near this 96, and then maybe chop around here to try to make another attempt to go back up above 100. And the worst case is the scenarios was to break this 96 and come down and take out this low here. Take a look at NVDA here, and NVDA, you can see that it's also been trending on this trend line here. It seems like finding support on this trend line, although this time it didn't come all the way down here. Maybe this is still in the process of forming a lower high and try to get down to a lower low to test this trend line here. But the other possibility is that could be just making its way back up and take out this particular high here. So we take a look at the 30-minute chart here and put up some of these level. Okay, so we're essentially looking at these area of support and resistance, and here. So if this thing come up, then we'll probably be looking at something of this move. But if it fail to be able to move up and come back down, and maybe it just kind of chop around before it make its move back up. But if it break this support, then we're probably looking for this thing to come down and retest these lows down here. Okay, so that's basically the semiconductor stock that I'll be watching for the coming week to see what they're gonna do and see what sort of trade setup that it will give me to enter some of the short-term swing long on these guys. Good luck.